Long before maps found their way into the hands of travelers, before roads stitched together kingdoms and mountains, there lived an old storyteller who wandered from village to village with nothing but a walking staff and a lantern that never seemed to burn out. Wherever people welcomed him beside a warm fire, he would smile softly and tell only one tale. It was not a tale of war, nor of dragons breathing fire, nor of kings who sought glory. Instead, it was the story of a village so hidden that even the birds seemed— "It lies," he would whisper, "beyond 7 quiet valleys, where cedar forests grow so tall they brush the stars. There, among gentle mountains wrapped in silver mist, stands a village that no map has ever remembered." Children always leaned closer. "What is special about it?" they asked. The old storyteller's eyes reflected the dancing firelight. "Every 100 years," he said, "a second moon rises into the heavens." "But there is only one moon." He nodded. "On every ordinary night, yes. Yet once in a century, when the world has grown too noisy and hearts have forgotten how to dream, another moon awakens." It was called the dream moon. Unlike the pale white moon everyone knew, the dream moon shimmered with quiet shades of silver blue, as though woven from mist, starlight, and morning frost. Its light did not brighten the earth. Instead, it brightened the soul. Under its gentle glow, every person in that hidden village drifted into the same dream. Children, parents, grandparents, even the birds tucked within their nests, and the foxes curled beneath ancient— There were no nightmares, no fear, no loneliness. Only peaceful forests where rivers glowed with stars, gentle mountains that sang with the wind, and gardens where memories bloomed like flowers. For one single night, every heart became part of one beautiful dream. When dawn arrived, everyone awoke smiling. No one argued. No one hurried. They remembered every moment together, as though they had walked side by side through another world. Then the dream moon vanished for another 100 years. Many believed the tale was merely an old legend. Others searched all their lives for the hidden village. None returned with proof. Yet every now and then, some lonely traveler claimed to have seen silver light dancing between distant mountains. Some shepherd spoke of hearing songs carried by the midnight wind. Some child dreamed of a village where strangers were welcomed like family. Whether these were dreams or memories, no one could say. The old storyteller would simply smile. "Not every place wishes to be found," he whispered. "Some places reveal themselves only to those who have forgotten how to search and remembered how to wonder." And somewhere, far beyond familiar roads, beyond forests older than kingdoms, the dream moon waited patiently for another century to pass. On an autumn evening painted in shades of gold and amber, a lone traveler followed a narrow mountain path. His name was Elias. He carried little besides a weathered backpack, a walking stick carved from ash wood, and a journal whose pages were filled with sketches of distant landscapes. He had no destination. Some people wandered because they were lost. Elias wandered because every road seemed to promise another story. For many months he had crossed peaceful valleys, quiet rivers, sleepy villages, and forests where deer watched silently between the trees. The mountains before him were unlike any he had seen. Their peaks disappeared into drifting clouds. The air smelled of cedar, moss, and rain that had fallen long ago. Even the wind seemed quieter here. As sunset faded, the forest slowly filled with gentle evening sounds. Leaves rustled softly. A distant owl greeted the coming night. Tiny streams whispered beneath smooth stones. Elias breathed deeply. There was something comforting about these mountains. Not exciting, not mysterious, simply welcoming. As darkness settled, he searched for a place to camp. Instead, he noticed something unusual. Far away between the trees, a warm golden light flickered. Then another. Lanterns, an entire village hidden among the forest. Curious, Elias continued along the winding trail. The closer he came, the quieter everything became. No barking dogs, no shouting voices, only laughter carried gently upon the breeze. Soon he reached an old wooden bridge, crossing a crystal-clear stream. Tiny lanterns floated across the water like drifting stars. On the opposite side stood a simple stone archway covered with climbing ivy. No name marked its entrance. Only a carving of two crescent moons joined together. Elias paused. He had never seen such a symbol. Stepping beneath the archway felt strangely peaceful. It was as though the worries of long travel quietly slipped from his shoulders. The village beyond was beautiful. Stone cottages rested beneath ancient cedar trees. Warm light glowed through every window. Flower gardens bloomed despite the cool autumn air. Children chased glowing fireflies through narrow streets. An old baker laughed as he placed fresh bread upon a wooden shelf. A blacksmith quietly polished tools. Instead of forging noisy iron, no one seemed hurried. No one appeared troubled. It felt as though time itself had slowed. A little girl noticed Elias first. She smiled brightly. "You made it." He blinked. "Made it?" We wondered who would arrive this time. Before Elias could ask another question, several villagers gathered around him. Instead of questioning his arrival, they welcomed him as though expecting an old friend. An elderly woman stepped forward. Her silver hair was braided with tiny blue flowers. Her eyes shone with remarkable kindness. "I am Grandmother Elara," she said. "You have traveled far." "I suppose I have. You must be tired." "A little." She smiled knowingly. "Then tonight you shall rest." Without asking another question, she gently led him through the peaceful streets. The scent of fresh bread drifted through the cool evening air. Nearby, someone played a slow melody upon a wooden flute. Children carried tiny lanterns shaped like stars. Above them, the familiar moon quietly watched over the valley. Everything felt ordinary, yet somehow wonderfully different. Grandmother Elara prepared a warm meal of vegetable stew, fresh bread, mountain herbs, and honey gathered from nearby forests. Elias thanked her. "You've welcomed a complete stranger with extraordinary kindness." She poured warm tea into a small clay cup. "There are no strangers here, only travelers." After dinner, they sat beside a small fireplace. Its flames danced softly across the room. Outside, gentle wind stirred the cedar branches. Finally, Elias asked the question that had quietly lingered in his thoughts. "I've wandered many years. I've never heard of this village." Grandmother Elara smiled. "Very few have." "Why?" "Because people searching for us rarely arrive, and those who aren't searching, they sometimes do." Elias laughed softly. "That makes very little sense." "It doesn't have to." Silence settled comfortably between them. Eventually, she looked toward the window. "The moon will rise soon." "It already has." "The other one." Elias frowned. "The other moon?" She simply smiled. "You'll understand before dawn." Outside, the village grew quieter. Lanterns were lit one by one. Families returned home. Windows glowed warmly beneath the stars. The mountains seemed to hold their breath. High above, a single shooting star crossed the heavens. Then another. Then another. Elias stepped outside. The cool night air brushed gently across his face. He looked toward the eastern horizon. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, far beyond the mountains, a faint silver-blue glow slowly began to rise. It was softer than moonlight, gentler than dawn. The entire valley seemed to shimmer beneath its peaceful radiance. On the beyond, villagers stepped from their homes. No one spoke. They simply watched with quiet smiles. Above the mountain peaks, a second moon slowly appeared. Its light spread silently across the forest like flowing water. The cedar trees sparkled. The river reflected two moons instead of one. Tiny glowing flowers opened across every hillside. Even the stars seemed brighter. Elias stared upward. unable to speak. The legend. It was real. Behind him, Grandmother Elara whispered almost too softly to hear, "Welcome to the night of shared dreams." And as the silver light washed gently over the village, every heart grew wonderfully still. The silver-blue light of the dream moon settled gently across the valley, like the quiet fall of fresh snow. No breeze stirred the cedar branches. No owl called from the forest. Even the little stream that wandered through the village seemed to slow its cheerful song, as though it too wished to listen. Elias stood in the village square, unable to look away from the sky. Never in all his years of wandering had he seen a moon like this. Its light did not shine brightly. Instead, it glowed softly, wrapping every stone, every rooftop, every flower, and every face in a calm radiance that seemed to belong to another world. The villagers gathered together without speaking. Some sat upon wooden benches, others spread blankets across the grass. Children rested their heads upon their parents' shoulders, already growing sleepy. Nobody appeared afraid. Instead, they wore the quiet smiles of people greeting an old friend. Grandmother Elara walked beside Elias, carrying 2 small cups of warm herbal tea. She handed one to him. "The mountain lavender grows only here," she said softly. "It helps the heart become quiet." Elias lifted the cup. Steam curled gently into the cool night air, carrying the comforting scents of lavender, chamomile, cedar blossoms, and sweet honey. He took a slow sip. Warmth spread through him. The aches of countless miles seemed to disappear one by one. For the first time in many months, he felt no need to continue walking. He was simply content to remain exactly where he was. Around him, the village grew quieter still. One by one, candles inside the cottages faded. Lanterns dimmed until only the silver light remained. Then something remarkable happened. The dream moon seemed to breathe. Its glow rippled across the valley in gentle waves. Every ripple shimmered like light dancing upon calm water. The silver-blue radiance touched each villager. A child yawned. An old man smiled. A young woman closed her eyes. Within moments, everyone had peacefully fallen asleep. Not inside their homes. Not hidden away. They slept beneath the open sky together. Elias looked around in amazement. Hundreds of peaceful faces rested beneath the twin moons. Even the village dogs curled beside their families. The horses lowered their heads. Birds tucked their beaks beneath soft feathers. It was as though the entire valley had become one great sleeping family. Only Elias remained awake. He looked toward Grandmother Elara. She had closed her eyes with a gentle smile still upon her face. Then, almost without realizing it, Elias felt his own eyelids grow wonderfully heavy. The mountain lavender, the gentle silence, the endless silver light. He lay back upon the soft grass. Above him, thousands of stars sparkled between the 2 moons. The last thing he heard was the distant whisper of wind moving through cedar branches. Then, sleep came. At first there was only darkness. Not frightening darkness. The peaceful darkness one sees after closing their eyes beside a warm fire. Gradually, a single point of light appeared. It floated gently before him like a tiny lantern. Then another joined it. Then dozens, hundreds, thousands. The lights drifted upward until they formed an endless river of stars flowing across a midnight sky. Elias opened his eyes. He was standing once again, but not within the village. Instead, he stood upon a smooth stone path, surrounded by forests unlike anything he had ever imagined. Every tree glowed softly from within. Their trunks shimmered with gentle silver veins. Their leaves sparkled as though tiny stars rested upon every branch. Whenever the leaves moved, they created soft musical notes, delicate enough to be mistaken for distant bells. The air smelled of rain, cedar, wildflowers, and fresh earth after spring. Tiny lights floated lazily between the trees. Some resembled butterflies. Others looked like little lanterns without strings. None hurried. Everything moved with peaceful purpose. Elias took a careful step forward. The path felt warm beneath his feet. Ahead, he noticed familiar faces. The villagers. Children laughed as they chased glowing butterflies. Grandparents walked beside grandchildren. Friends greeted one another with quiet smiles. Everyone seemed younger somehow, healthier, lighter. No one carried sadness. No one hurried toward tomorrow. They simply wandered together beneath the endless glowing forest. A little boy noticed Elias. "You found the dream." Elias smiled. "I suppose I did." The child laughed. "Everyone does." Before Elias could ask another question, the little boy skipped happily toward his family. It struck Elias as curious. No one seemed surprised that he had arrived, as though every traveler eventually reached this place. The path curved gently toward a wide meadow. In its center stood an enormous tree. Its trunk was wider than any house. Its branches stretched farther than Elias could see. Millions of glowing leaves shimmered overhead like stars suspended in gentle wind. Each leaf glowed with a different color, some silver, some blue, some pale gold, some soft green. As he approached, he realized the leaves were whispering, not with words, with memories, laughter, songs, gentle conversations. Children learning to walk, parents telling bedtime stories, friends embracing after long journeys. Every joyful memory ever shared by the village seemed to live among the branches. Elias stood beneath the great tree in complete wonder. Its roots disappeared into rivers of glowing water. Its branches reached beyond the stars themselves. Then a calm voice spoke beside him. "You are listening." He turned. Standing beneath the tree was a figure dressed in robes woven from silver threads. Their face appeared young and old at once. Their hair shimmered like moonlight upon calm water. Their eyes reflected countless stars, neither man nor woman, simply timeless. "I am called the Dream Keeper." Elias bowed respectfully. "What is this place?" The Dream Keeper looked upward. "This is where hearts remember one another." "The village is dreaming?" "Yes, all together, as they have for many centuries." The Dream Keeper gently placed one hand upon the ancient tree. "This tree is older than kingdoms. It remembers every shared dream. It remembers every kindness. It remembers every promise kept. It remembers every peaceful heart." The glowing leaves rustled softly. One drifted downward. The Dream Keeper caught it. "Would you like to see?" Elias nodded. The keeper placed the glowing leaf upon his palm. Immediately the world around him changed. He saw children laughing beneath summer rain. He saw weddings celebrated beneath flowering trees. He saw grandparents rocking newborn babies beside warm fireplaces. He saw harvest festivals lit by thousands of lanterns. He saw countless generations sharing stories beneath these very branches. Each memory lasted only a heartbeat, yet everyone filled him with quiet joy. The leaf dissolved into tiny stars. "They are beautiful," Elias whispered. "They belong to everyone." The Dream Keeper smiled. "Dreams become stronger when they are shared." They continued walking together beneath the enormous branches. The forest gradually opened into rolling hills covered in glowing flowers. Each flower opened as someone nearby smiled. Each closed peacefully when silence returned. Above them floated islands wrapped in waterfalls that poured upward into the sky. Gentle wails made entirely of stars drifted lazily through the heavens like enormous clouds. Their songs echoed across the dream world in deep, soothing melodies. Elias had never imagined such beauty. "Is all of this real?" he asked quietly. The Dream Keeper looked toward the glowing horizon. "Tell me, when you wake from a beautiful dream, does its kindness disappear?" Elias thought carefully. "No, it remains." "Then perhaps dreams are simply another way reality remembers itself." The answer lingered in the peaceful air. Far ahead, a white shape appeared among the glowing mist. A magnificent stag stepped silently onto the path. Its antlers shimmered with constellations. Its white coat reflected the silver blue light of the dream moon. Wherever its hooves touched the earth, tiny blue flowers blossom. The villagers paused. Each offered a respectful bow. Even the dreamkeeper inclined their head. "The dream stag has come," they whispered. The great creature looked directly at Elias. Its gentle eyes held neither fear nor curiosity, only recognition, as though it had been expecting him all along. The stag turned gracefully and began walking deeper into the glowing forest. The dreamkeeper smiled. "It wishes you to follow." "Where?" "To the oldest place in the dream, the place where the first dream began." Elias looked once more toward the endless forest, where glowing rivers wound between luminous trees and stars floated gently through the air. He took a slow breath. Then, with quiet wonder filling his heart, he stepped after the dream stag. Far ahead, beyond hills of silver grass and forests of singing trees, a warm golden light shimmered upon the horizon. Something ancient waited there, something that had been dreaming for far longer than any village, far longer than memory itself. The dream stag walked without haste. Its graceful steps made no sound upon the silver grass, yet with every hoofprint, tiny blossoms of pale blue unfurled behind it. Their petals glowed for only a few moments, before fading into gentle points of light that drifted upward like tiny stars returning to the heavens. Elias followed quietly. Behind him, the dream keeper walked with hands folded peacefully inside flowing sleeves that shimmered like woven moonlight. The glowing forest slowly gave way to rolling meadows, where rivers flowed as clear as crystal. But these were no ordinary rivers. Instead of reflecting the stars above, they carried stars within them. Thousands of tiny lights drifted beneath the water, moving lazily with a current like schools of luminous fish. The gentle sound of flowing water filled the quiet landscape. It was unlike any river Elias had ever heard. The water did not rush. It sang. Soft notes rose and fell with every ripple, creating a melody so calm that it seemed older than language itself. "The river of quiet memories," said the dreamkeeper. "It carries every peaceful moment ever shared in the village." Elias knelt beside the water. As he touched its cool surface, circles spread outward. Within those ripples appeared fleeting images. A father teaching his daughter to carve a wooden bird, friends laughing beneath spring blossoms, an old woman knitting beside a glowing hearth, while snow drifted gently outside, children building tiny boats from cedar bark and sending them downstream with candles glowing inside. The images lasted only moments before becoming water once more. "No sorrow?" Elias asked softly. The dreamkeeper smiled. "Sorrow exists, but here we remember first what gives us strength." They continued onward until the meadow narrowed into a stone pathway. Ancient lanterns lined its edges. Each one burned with a small silver flame that gave no heat and never flickered. No one had lit them. No one tended them, yet they had clearly been burning for a very long time. At last the dream stag stopped. Before them stood a great hill crowned by a single tree, unlike any Elias had ever imagined. Its trunk shimmered with hues of silver, gold, and pale sapphire. Its roots spread across the hillside like gentle rivers. Its branches stretched so high that they disappeared into drifting clouds of starlight. Millions of glowing leaves rustled together, not loudly, only enough to sound like distant whispers carried by the evening wind. The dreamkeeper lowered their head. The heart tree, the oldest living soul within the dream. Elias gazed upward. "I thought the great tree in the meadow was ancient." "It is, but it grew from a single seed." The keeper looked toward the towering tree before them. "And that seed came from here." "Yes." They climbed the gentle hill. Elias noticed countless small lanterns hanging among the lower branches. Inside each floated a tiny silver light. Some glowed brightly. Others shimmered softly. A few had only begun to awaken. "What are they?" he whispered. "The dreams of those who have visited." "Mine too?" The keeper nodded. "It arrived the moment you chose kindness over fear." Elias looked at the nearest lantern. Its gentle light pulsed like a quiet heartbeat. Without thinking, he smiled. The lantern answered with a warmer glow. "It knows," said the keeper. "The dream remembers every heart that enters willingly." The dream stag stepped beneath the enormous tree. It lowered its head toward the roots. Immediately, the earth began to glow. Silver lines spread through the ground like flowing streams beneath glass. The roots gently parted. Hidden below them appeared a circular doorway carved from smooth white stone. No handle, no lock, only one symbol. Two crescent moons embracing one another. The doorway slowly opened without a sound. Warm golden light spilled outward. The dream keeper gestured gently. "It is time." Elias stepped inside. The chamber beyond was unlike any place he had ever seen. Its ceiling disappeared into a sky filled with slow-moving constellations. The walls resembled polished stone, yet stars shimmered beneath their surface. At the center stood a great loom. It was larger than a cottage. Its frame appeared carved from moonlit cedar. Its threads were not made of cloth. They were woven from light itself. Silver, blue, gold, white. Each thread drifted gently through the air as though moved by an invisible breeze. An elderly woman sat before the loom. Her long white hair flowed almost to the floor. Her robes shimmered with the colors of dawn. Her hands moved slowly across the glowing threads. Each careful movement sent tiny stars drifting upward. She looked up as Elias entered. Her smile carried the warmth of countless grandmothers. "You have arrived." Elias bowed respectfully. "Are you the dream weaver?" She nodded. "I've waited a very long time." Her voice was soft enough to become part of the room itself. The dream keeper stood quietly nearby. The dream stag lay peacefully beside the great loom. For several moments, no one spoke. Only the gentle sound of weaving filled the chamber. Finally, Elias asked, "What are you making?" The dream weaver guided another glowing thread into place. "Tomorrow." He blinked. "Tomorrow?" She smiled. "Every hopeful dream, every act of kindness, every peaceful night's sleep, they begin here." Elias watched the shimmering threads. Some looked like moonlight upon calm lakes. Others sparkled with children's laughter. A few carried the warm orange glow of fireplaces on winter evenings. The weaver continued. "People often believe dreams disappear when morning comes. They do not. They become choices. The dream of kindness becomes compassion. The dream of courage becomes action. The dream of peace becomes a gentle word. Every beautiful dream leaves something behind." Elias found himself listening as though the room itself had become a story. The weaver carefully tied another glowing thread. Far away among the stars overhead, a new constellation quietly appeared. She smiled. "Another child has begun dreaming." After some time, the dream weaver stood. Though she appeared elderly, she moved with graceful ease. She walked toward a wide circular window overlooking the dream world. From there, Elias could see glowing forests stretching beyond the horizon. Floating islands drifted peacefully through clouds of silver mist. The river of quiet memories wound gently between hills covered in luminous flowers. Above everything hung the two moons, the familiar white moon, and beside it, the dream moon. "So beautiful," Elias whispered. "It was not always there," the weaver said. He turned. "What do you mean?" The old woman rested one hand upon the window. "Long ago, before villages, before kingdoms, even before roads, the world dreamed alone." She continued. "People feared one another because they believed every heart was separate. They forgot that joy grows stronger when shared. They forgot that hope multiplies. They forgot that kindness echoes. So the stars gathered. They wove together a second moon, not to rule the night, but to remind humanity that every dream becomes brighter when dreamed together." Elias looked once more toward the glowing moon. Its light now seemed even gentler than before. "The dream moon appears only once every 100 years," he said. "Why?" The weaver smiled sadly. "Because even miracles must rest. For 99 years, it sleeps, gathering every hopeful dream whispered beneath the ordinary moon. When it is full, it returns and reminds one village, so the rest of the world may someday remember. The room became wonderfully quiet. Only the loom continued its patient rhythm. Thread, light, thread, light. Like breathing, the dream stag slowly rose. It walked toward the doorway before pausing. Its great antlers sparkled more brightly than before. The dream keeper watched it carefully. It is time. For what? The keeper looked toward the weaver. She nodded gently. The heart tree is calling. Elias felt a faint vibration beneath his feet. Not frightening, almost like the slow heartbeat of the earth itself. Outside the circular window, the glowing forest seemed to shimmer. Tiny lights rose from every village rooftop far below. Millions of dream lanterns floated upward into the sky. Yet among their gentle glow, one light flickered, then another. Far beyond the peaceful valley, near the edge of the dream horizon, a small patch of darkness spread quietly across the silver landscape. Not violent, not alive, simply a place where dreams no longer reached. The dream weaver watched silently. Her kind expression became thoughtful. The silence has returned. Elias looked toward the distant shadow. What is it? She answered almost in a whisper. It is what happens when hope is forgotten. The dream stag turned toward Elias once more. Its gentle eyes reflected both moons. Then, without a sound, it stepped out beneath the glowing branches of the heart tree. Elias followed, unaware that before the dream could end, he would be asked to make a choice, one that no traveler had faced for generations. The dream stag walked slowly down the hill beneath the heart tree. Its silver coat glimmered beneath the gentle light of the dream moon, and wherever it stepped, the earth awakened with tiny blossoms that glowed for a few peaceful moments before returning to the stars. Elias followed with quiet footsteps. The dreamkeeper remained beside him, saying nothing. There was no need. The silence itself felt comforting, like the hush that settles over the world after fresh snow has covered every path. They left the heart tree behind and entered a narrow trail bordered by ancient cedars. Their trunks were wider than cottages, their branches woven together so gracefully that they formed a living arch overhead. Tiny lights drifted between the branches. Some resembled butterflies. Others looked like tiny lanterns carried by invisible hands. Every so often, one would pause beside Elias before floating peacefully onward. The air smelled of pine needles, cool stone, mountain herbs, and the sweetness of blooming night flowers. It was a fragrance unlike any place he had visited. This path, the dreamkeeper finally said, has been walked by every dreamer. For how long? So long that even the mountains have forgotten. They continued until the trees gradually opened. Beyond them stretched a broad valley, unlike any Elias had imagined. Instead of forests, there were endless fields of tall silver grass moving gently beneath an invisible breeze. Thousands of white flowers bloomed among the grasses. Their petals glowed softly in the moonlight. Small streams wandered peacefully through the valley, each reflecting both moons with perfect clarity. Above them floated hundreds of paper lanterns. They drifted lazily through the night sky without strings, each carrying a tiny golden flame. The entire valley seemed to breathe, not with sound, but with quiet life. Elias stood still. I've never seen such peace. The dreamkeeper smiled. This is the Valley of Forgotten Dreams. Elias looked around in surprise. Forgotten? The keeper nodded. Not every beautiful dream is remembered when morning comes, but no beautiful dream is ever truly lost. They arrive here. Elias watched as one of the floating lanterns slowly descended toward the valley floor. It landed gently among the flowers. Its tiny flame became a glowing blossom. So every forgotten dream becomes a flower. The keeper's eyes shone softly, and every peaceful wish becomes a lantern. Elias smiled. I like that. So do they. For a long while they wandered together without speaking. There was nothing that needed explaining. The valley explained itself. The grass whispered quietly as the wind moved through it. Gentle streams carried silver reflections beneath old stone bridges. Bluebirds with shimmering feathers sang melodies so soft they seemed almost part of the breeze. Even the stars appeared lower here, close enough to touch. Eventually, they reached a small wooden bench overlooking the valley. It faced east, toward distant mountains wrapped in pale mist. The dreamkeeper sat. Elias joined them. Neither hurried to leave. "Do the villagers visit this place often?" Elias asked. "They do." "When?" "Every night." "But they never remember?" "They remember the feeling." The keeper smiled. "When someone wakes with unexpected peace in their heart, when they smile for no reason, when they feel grateful without knowing why, they have walked through this valley." Elias looked over the endless sea of glowing flowers. He thought of mornings throughout his own life, moments when he had awakened feeling strangely hopeful. Perhaps, he wondered, had he once walked here without remembering? The thought filled him with quiet comfort. A gentle bell sounded somewhere across the valley. It rang only once. Its note lingered in the air like the final ripple upon a still lake. Almost immediately, dozens of tiny foxes emerged from the silver grass. Their fur shimmered with pale moonlight. Their tails sparkled with tiny stars. Instead of running, they wandered slowly among the flowers. Each paused beside a lantern before continuing onward. "They're beautiful," Elias whispered. "The lantern foxes," said the keeper. "They care for forgotten dreams." "How?" "When a dream grows lonely, they sit beside it. When a dream grows dim, they remind it that someone once dreamed it." Elias watched one tiny fox curl peacefully beside a lantern, its fluffy tail wrapped gently around the warm light. Within moments, the lantern glowed brighter. The fox closed its eyes. "Content." Another fox carried a tiny glowing flower in its mouth and placed it beneath an older lantern. Nearby, two young foxes chased drifting lights through the grass. Everything moved with calm purpose. There was no hunting, no fear, only quiet care. "They never stop working," Elias observed. "They don't think of it as work. They simply care." The answer lingered in the peaceful air. As they continued walking, the valley gradually became brighter. Not because the moons had changed. Rather, the flowers themselves began opening wider. Millions of tiny blossoms turned toward Elias, as though greeting him. Their soft glow illuminated the path ahead. "What are they doing?" "They recognize a visitor. I've never been here." The keeper looked toward him kindly. "Perhaps not while awake." Elias laughed softly. The keeper laughed as well. It was a warm sound, gentle enough to become part of the valley. Ahead stood a circular pond as smooth as polished glass. Not a single ripple disturbed its surface. The water reflected both moons perfectly. Around its edge grew pale blue lilies whose petals sparkled with tiny droplets of light. "What is this place?" Elias asked. "The mirror pond." "What does it reflect?" "Not faces, hearts." Elias stepped carefully toward the water. Instead of seeing his own reflection, he saw memories. His childhood home, his parents smiling beneath an apple tree, his first long journey, the old shepherd who had shared bread with him one rainy evening, the baker who refused payment because Elias looked tired, the little girl who had once gifted him a feather after he helped rescue her kite. So many small kindnesses. Many he had nearly forgotten. The water shimmered gently. More memories appeared. Some were his own acts of kindness. Others belonged to strangers who had unknowingly changed his life. A smile, a shared meal, a warm fire offered during winter, a stranger giving directions. Simplement, tiny moments. Yet together they formed something extraordinary. His life. Tears quietly filled Elias's eyes. "I had forgotten." The pond remembers. The dreamkeeper rested a gentle hand upon his shoulder. "Kindness is easy to overlook, especially our own." The water slowly became still once again. Only the twin moons remained reflected upon its surface. Nearby, the dream stag had stopped beneath a willow tree. Silver leaves drifted lazily around its antlers. The great creature looked toward the eastern horizon. The first hint of dawn colored the distant mountains with pale lavender. "So soon?" Elias whispered. "Time moves differently within the dream." The keeper stood. "The village will soon awaken. I don't want to leave." "Few ever do." Elias looked one last time across the valley of forgotten dreams. The lanterns floated peacefully overhead. The lantern foxes curled beside glowing flowers. Streams sang their endless melody. Gentle wind carried the scent of cedar and lavender. Everything felt wonderfully complete. The dream keeper smiled. You may not remember every detail, but your heart will. The dream stag stepped forward. Its antlers glowed brighter than ever before. It lowered its head. As Elias gently touched one silver antler, thousands of tiny stars burst softly into the air. They swirled around him like drifting snow. The valley slowly faded. The flowers became light. The lanterns became stars. The streams became silver ribbons flowing into the sky. Everything grew wonderfully quiet. Then Elias opened his eyes. He was lying upon the soft grass in the village square. The ordinary moon hung low above the western mountains. The dream moon had vanished. Morning sunlight painted the rooftops with warm gold. Birds greeted the new day. Nearby, villagers stretched peacefully, smiling as they awakened. Children laughed. Neighbors greeted one another with knowing smiles. No one asked, "What did you dream?" There was no need. They had all shared it. Grandmother Alara walked their Elias carrying 2 warm cups of mountain tea. She offered him one. "Good morning." He accepted it with a grateful smile. It was real. She nodded. "It always is." Elias looked around the peaceful village. Everything appeared exactly as it had the evening before, yet everything somehow felt brighter. The flowers, the cottages, the laughter, even the morning breeze. He could no longer remember every detail of the dream. The glowing forests had become hazy. The heart tree felt distant. The dreamweaver's face was already beginning to fade like mist beneath the morning sun. But one feeling remained perfectly clear. Peace. A deep, gentle peace, unlike anything he had ever known. Grandmother Alara smiled knowingly. The dream leaves behind exactly what we need. Elias lifted his eyes toward the empty blue sky where, only hours before, 2 moons had shone together. Though only one remained, he could almost feel the quiet light of the other still resting somewhere within his heart. And for the first time since beginning his endless journey, he no longer wondered where the road would take him next, for he had finally discovered something more precious than another destination. He had discovered a place that would always welcome him. Whenever he closed his eyes and dreamed, the morning unfolded slowly, as though the valley itself wished to linger between dream and day. Golden sunlight spilled over the cedar-covered mountains, touching each rooftop with gentle warmth. Dewdrops sparkled upon the flower gardens, and a light mist drifted above the little stream that wound through the heart of the village. The air smelled of fresh bread, wild mint, and cedar wood warmed by the first rays of the sun. Elias sat on a smooth stone beside the stream, cradling the warm cup of mountain tea Grandmother Ilara had given him. He listened. The water whispered over polished stones. Songbirds greeted the morning from the branches overhead. Somewhere nearby, a wooden wind chime chimed softly whenever the breeze wandered through the garden. It was a quiet beginning to a beautiful day. After a while, the village slowly awakened. Children stepped outside carrying little wicker baskets. Their laughter floated through the streets like birdsong. An elderly man swept the stone path before his cottage, humming a tune so old that no one remembered who had first composed it. 2 sisters watered flowers blooming beneath their windows. The baker opened his wooden shutters, releasing the comforting scent of warm bread into the cool morning air. No one hurried. There was nowhere they needed to be except exactly where they were. Grandmother Alara joined Elias beside the stream. "You slept well. I've never rested so deeply." She smiled knowingly. "The dream moon leaves a quiet gift." "What gift?" She looked toward the mountains glowing beneath the morning sun. "It reminds us that peace does not disappear with the dream. It simply changes its shape." Elias considered her words as they watched tiny fish gliding through the crystal clear water. After a comfortable silence, he asked, "Does every morning feel like this?" Ilara laughed softly. "No. Some mornings bring rain. Others bring strong winds. Sometimes crops fail. Sometimes roofs need repairing. We are not untouched by ordinary life." She looked around the village. "But after dreaming together, we remember to meet every day with gentle hearts." By mid-morning, preparations had begun throughout the village. Colorful ribbons were tied between cedar trees. Long wooden tables were carried into the village square. Children gathered wildflowers from nearby meadows, weaving them into wreaths and garlands. Fresh loaves of bread cooled upon open windowsills. Clay pots filled with mountain herbs released their fragrant aromas into the air. "What is everyone preparing?" Elias asked. "The Festival of First Light," Grandmother Elias replied. "It is held only after the dream moon visits." "A celebration? A thanksgiving? For dreams remembered?" She smiled. "For dreams shared." The village square gradually transformed into a place of quiet celebration. Unlike the grand festivals Elias had witnessed in bustling cities, there were no loud trumpets or crowded marketplaces. Instead, everything felt simple, intentionnel, peaceful. Hand-woven blankets covered the grass. Fresh fruit-filled wooden bowls, honey glowed like liquid amber inside small glass jars. Wildflower bouquets stood in clay vases shaped by generations of village potters. Children carefully arranged tiny lanterns around the square, even though daylight still filled the valley. "They'll be beautiful this evening," one little girl explained with a proud smile. Elias nodded. "I believe they will." As the sun climbed higher, the villagers gathered beneath an enormous cedar tree near the center of the square. Its broad branches spread like welcoming arms over everyone seated below. Grandmother Elias stood, not to give a speech, simply to tell a story. "My grandmother," she began, "once told me that every kindness is like planting a cedar seed." The children leaned closer. "You may never sit beneath its shade, but someone will." She paused. "And because someone long ago planted trees for us." She looked upward through the branches. "Today we rest comfortably beneath them." No one applauded. There was only a thoughtful silence. It was enough. Soon others began sharing stories. A fisherman spoke about rescuing an injured swan many years earlier. A young mother remembered how the village had helped rebuild her home after a fierce winter storm. An elderly couple laughed as they recalled getting lost together in the forest during their youth and discovering a hidden meadow filled with glowing blue flowers. Each story was small, simple, yet every one carried quiet kindness. Elias realized something. None of the stories celebrated great victories. No tales of kings, no battles, no treasures. Only ordinary moments that had quietly changed someone's life. He found himself smiling. Perhaps those were the greatest stories after all. By afternoon, delicious aromas filled every corner of the village. The baker removed round loaves from the great stone oven. Steam curled into the air as crisp crusts crackled gently. Nearby, families prepared hearty vegetable soup using carrots, potatoes, onions, herbs, and mushrooms gathered from the cedar forest. Fresh apple tarts cooled upon wooden tables. Honey cakes decorated with tiny edible flowers glistened beneath the sunlight. Grandmother Alara handed Elias a small wooden bowl. Dusted. Inside was warm oat porridge, sweetened with mountain honey and sprinkled with roasted hazelnuts. It was wonderfully simple, wonderfully comforting. "This is delicious," she smiled. "Food always tastes better when shared." Soon everyone gathered together. No assigned seats, no place of honor. Children sat beside elders. Neighbors welcomed travelers. Friends laughed over steaming bowls of soup. The meal unfolded slowly, with gentle conversation carried between bites of fresh bread and warm tea. Above them, clouds drifted lazily across the bright blue sky. The valley seemed content simply to exist. Later that afternoon, Elias wandered toward the little stream once more. He noticed a boy carefully placing tiny wooden boats upon the water. Each boat carried a folded paper sail. "Where are they going?" Elias asked. The boy looked up with bright eyes. "To the lake." "And then?" The boy shrugged with a smile. "Wherever the stream wishes." Another child joined them, carrying several more boats. Each had been carved from cedar wood. Some were painted blue, others white. One tiny boat carried a little flower instead of a sail. "They're beautiful," Elias said. "We make them every festival of first light." "Why?" The little girl answered, "To thank the river for remembering the mountains." Elias laughed softly. "I've never heard anyone thank a river before." She giggled. Perhaps rivers don't hear it often enough. Together they watched the little boats drift gently downstream. The current carried them beneath tiny wooden bridges and past gardens overflowing with lavender and daisies. None hurried. Each simply followed the water. Elias found himself wondering how many generations of children had stood beside this same stream, sending little boats toward places unknown. The thought made the moment feel timeless. As evening approached, golden light settled across the valley. Long shadows stretched peacefully between the cottages. The air cooled. Lanterns hanging beneath the cedar branches were lit one by one. Their warm amber glow mingled beautifully with the deepening blue of twilight. Music quietly returned to the village. A young woman played a wooden flute. An elderly man accompanied her with a small harp whose gentle notes floated through the evening like drifting leaves. No one danced with great excitement. Instead, families swayed slowly together beneath the lanterns. Children spun in circles until they collapsed into laughter upon the grass. Grandparents smiled from nearby benches. Grandmother Elara joined Elias at the edge of the square. "You've been watching everyone." "I have. What do you see?" He thought for a long moment. "I see people who have learned not to rush." She nodded. It took many generations. They stood together beneath the first evening stars. Finally, Elias asked the question that had quietly rested within him all day. "What happens now?" Grandmother Elara looked toward the mountain path beyond the village. "Tomorrow, the road continues. For me? For everyone." She smiled gently. "Some journeys lead outward, others lead home." The lanterns flickered softly in the growing darkness. Far above, the familiar moon rose once more. Only one moon. Yet somehow, Elias no longer felt that anything had been lost, for he now understood what the dreamkeeper had meant. Dreams did not disappear with morning. They simply became part of those who carried them forward. And as warm laughter drifted through the village beneath the quiet evening sky, Elias silently promised himself that wherever his road might lead, he would carry a little of this peaceful valley with him. Always. The following morning arrived with a sky as clear as polished glass. A gentle breeze wandered through the valley, carrying the fragrance of cedar, wild thyme, and fresh rain that had fallen somewhere high among the mountains during the night. The village awakened slowly once again. Smoke curled lazily from stone chimneys. The baker opened his little shop before sunrise, placing warm loaves upon a wooden shelf outside his door. The blacksmith swept fallen leaves from the path before lighting his quiet forge. Children greeted one another with sleepy smiles as they crossed the village square, carrying little baskets filled with berries gathered at dawn. Nothing seemed hurried. Nothing seemed ordinary. Yet nothing sought to be extraordinary. Life simply unfolded, one peaceful moment after another. Elias stood beside the small stream that crossed beneath the ivy-covered bridge where he had first entered the village. The water flowed as gently as it had on the evening of his arrival. He smiled to himself. Only a few days had passed, yet they somehow felt like an entire season of quiet living. Footsteps approached behind him. Grandmother Elara carried a small woven basket. Inside rested a round loaf of fresh bread, a little jar of mountain honey, dried herbs wrapped carefully in linen, and a small wooden cup carved from cedar. "For your journey," she said. Elias accepted the basket with grateful hands. "You've already given me more than I can repay." She laughed softly. "Kindness has no debt. It simply continues." He looked around the peaceful village. "I almost wish I could stay." Grandmother Elara rested her hand upon the old wooden railing of the bridge. "Many travelers say the same. And do any remain?" "A few, but most discover that the village has already given them what they came to find." Elias looked toward the mountain path, disappearing into the forest. "What if I don't know what that is?" She smiled. "You will. Perhaps not today, but someday." After breakfast, the villagers gathered in the square, not because someone had called them, not because there was a ceremony, simply because they wished to say goodbye. Children handed Elias little gifts. One offered a feather from a snowy mountain bird. Another gave him a smooth river stone painted with two tiny moons. An elderly carpenter presented him with a small wooden bookmark carved into the shape of a cedar leaf. "It belonged to my father," the old man said. "He always believed stories should travel." Elias accepted each gift with quiet gratitude. A young baker wrapped 2 sweet honey cakes in cloth. "For the first evening after you leave, so you'll remember us." "I don't think I'll ever forget." The baker smiled. "You'll forget many details, but not the feeling." Several villagers nodded knowingly. They all understood. The dream left memories differently than ordinary days. Some images faded. Some names softened with time, yet the peace remained. Always. As the morning sun climbed higher, Elias prepared to leave. He adjusted his backpack, placed the little gifts safely inside. fastened Grandmother Alara's basket to the side. Then he turned for one final look. The cottages glowed warmly beneath the towering cedars. Flower gardens swayed gently in the breeze. The little stream sparkled beneath the bridge. Smoke rose peacefully from stone chimneys. Children laughed somewhere beyond the square. It was everything a village should be. Simple, warm, alive. Grandmother Elara stepped beside him. Walk slowly today. I usually do. She smiled. Good. The mountains enjoy good company. Elias laughed. I'll remember that. He crossed the wooden bridge. The stream whispered beneath him. Halfway across, he paused. Something encouraged him to look back. The villagers were still standing together. Some waved. Others simply smiled. No one called for him to stay. No one asked when he would return. It was enough that they had shared this moment. Elias bowed his head, then continued across the bridge. The forest welcomed him once again. Tall cedars stretched toward the bright morning sky. Sunlight filtered through their branches in long golden beams. Birdsong echoed softly overhead. The mountain path curved gently upward. After some time, Elias noticed something curious. Tiny blue flowers had appeared beside the trail. They hadn't been there before. Each blossom shimmered ever so slightly in the sunlight. Whenever the breeze passed through them, they seemed almost to glow. He knelt beside one. Its petals were cool to the touch. For a brief moment, he thought he heard distant laughter. Children laughing beneath the dream moon. The sound disappeared as quickly as it had come. Elias smiled. The valley remembers. He continued walking. Hours passed peacefully. The trail wound through forests filled with moss-covered stones and clear mountain streams. A family of deer watched him quietly before disappearing between the trees. White butterflies drifted lazily through patches of sunlight. At midday, Elias rested beneath an enormous cedar whose branches stretched wide enough to shade the entire hillside. He unpacked the bread Grandmother Elara had baked. The loaf was still wonderfully fresh. He spread a little mountain honey across each slice. Nearby, a robin landed upon a fallen log. It tilted its head as though politely asking permission to join him. Elias broke off a few crumbs. The little bird accepted them happily. Good company, Elias said. The robin chirped once before flying away. He leaned comfortably against the great cedar tree. The gentle wind carried the familiar scent of lavender. For just a moment, he thought he saw silver-blue light dancing between distant mountain peaks. When he looked again, only sunlight remained. He closed his eyes. A peaceful warmth settled within him. Not sleep, simply contentment. Late that afternoon, the mountain path reached a wide overlook. Below stretched countless valleys, forests, rivers, and distant villages. The hidden village was nowhere to be seen. Elias searched carefully. Surely he had not wandered so far, yet there was no sign of it. No rooftops, no stream, no bridge, only endless cedar forests covering the mountainsides. He frowned gently. Had he taken the wrong path? He unfolded the small map from his backpack. Nothing. No village marked these mountains. He looked once more toward the valley below. A gentle breeze stirred the grass around him. Far away, just for the briefest moment, two hawks circled together above the trees. Their graceful flight formed the shape of two crescent moons touching one another. Then they drifted apart. Elias smiled. Perhaps some places simply chose not to be found. As evening approached, he reached a quiet meadow beside a small lake. Its still waters reflected the colors of sunset. Amber, rose, soft violet. He gathered a few fallen branches, lit a small fire. The flames crackled gently as darkness settled over the mountains. He ate the honey cakes the baker had packed for him. Their sweetness reminded him of laughter around the festival of first light. He removed the little cedar cup from his basket, filled it with cool spring water, raised it toward the stars. To the village, the breeze answered softly. He sat for a long while, watching the first stars appear. Then, without thinking, he looked toward the eastern sky. Only one moon rose above the mountain. Yet somehow, he no longer searched for the second. He knew where it was, not above the world, but quietly waiting within it, within every peaceful dream, within every gentle heart, within every act of kindness freely given. Before lying down to sleep, Elias opened his journal. For many minutes, he simply stared at the blank page. How could he describe a place that seemed determined to remain a mystery? Finally, he dipped his pen into ink and began writing. Some villages are built from stone and timber. Others are built from the kindness of those who live there. I found one such place among the mountains. Perhaps you will never discover it upon any map. But should you ever awaken with unexpected peace in your heart, or find yourself smiling for no reason beneath the moon, or choose kindness when no one is watching, then perhaps, for just a little while, you have walked there too. He gently closed the journal. The fire settled into glowing embers. Crickets sang beneath the stars. The lake reflected the quiet moon with perfect stillness. Wrapped in his blanket, Elias drifted peacefully to sleep. And somewhere beyond the highest mountains, hidden among ancient cedars, a quiet village rested beneath the stars, carrying the memory of another traveler who had shared their dream. For in that timeless place, no farewell was ever truly the end. It was simply another path leading home. The mountains kept their silence. Seasons came and went, as they always had. Spring covered the valleys with wildflowers in shades of blue and white. Summer filled the forests with the songs of birds greeting the dawn. Autumn painted the cedar-covered hills with amber and gold, while crisp winds carried the scent of pine through the quiet valleys. Winter wrapped every path beneath soft blankets of snow until the world seemed made entirely of white and silver. The mountains watched it all. They watched rivers carve gentle curves through ancient stone. They watched seedlings become towering cedars. They watched children grow into parents, and parents become grandparents. Years became decades. Decades became memories. Memories became stories. And stories became whispers carried from one generation to the next. Far beyond the hidden valley, travelers occasionally spoke of strange dreams. A shepherd once claimed that while sleeping beneath the stars, he dreamed of a village where every cottage glowed with warm golden light. A sailor resting in a quiet harbor dreamed of a silver river flowing through forests filled with singing trees. An old woman who had never traveled beyond her hometown woke one morning smiling, convinced she had spent the night sharing tea beside a mountain stream with people she had never met. No one could explain such dreams. Some laughed kindly. Others simply nodded and said, "Perhaps the night was generous." The years continued their quiet journey. 100 summers passed across the mountains. The cedar trees grew taller. The little stream beneath the ivy-covered bridge continued its endless song. The baker's shop remained open, though it was now tended by the great-grandchildren of the baker Elias had known. The children who once floated tiny cedar boats down the stream had become grandparents themselves, teaching the same gentle tradition to eager little hands. Grandmother Alara had long since become part of the village's oldest stories. Yet her favorite rocking chair still rested beside the fireplace in her cottage. Fresh flowers were always placed beside it, not from sadness, but from gratitude. The villagers often said that kindness never truly leaves a place where it has been freely given. It simply becomes part of the walls, the gardens, the trees, and the hearts of those who live there. One quiet autumn evening, the oldest bell in the village rang softly. Only once. Its gentle note drifted across the valley and into the cedar forest. Every villager paused. The children looked toward the mountains. The elders smiled knowingly. Someone whispered, "It is time." Throughout the village, lanterns were taken down from shelves where they had rested for generations. Blankets were spread across the grass. Fresh bread cooled upon windowsills. Mountain herbs steeped in clay teapots. The festival of first light would soon return. Not tomorrow, not next year, but tonight. High above the eastern mountains, A familiar silver-blue glow slowly began to rise. The dream moon had awakened once more. Many miles away, beyond 7 quiet valleys, a young traveler named Mira walked alone along a winding mountain trail. She carried a weathered satchel filled with books instead of maps. Unlike many travelers, she did not wander in search of treasure or adventure. She wandered because she loved forgotten stories. Whenever she arrived in a new village, she listened to the oldest voices she could find. She believed every place guarded a memory worth preserving. That evening, the mountains felt strangely peaceful. The wind had become wonderfully still. The forest seemed almost to glow beneath the rising moon. Mira paused beside a clear stream. Its water reflected 2 moons. She blinked. When she looked again, only one remained. "That was curious," she whispered. The breeze answered only with the scent of cedar. She continued walking. As twilight deepened, tiny golden lights began appearing between the trees. Lanterns. First one, then another, then dozens. They flickered gently like welcoming stars. Mira followed them without quite knowing why. The narrow path curved through the forest until she reached an old wooden bridge crossing a familiar stream. Ivy climbed its stone supports. The water beneath it whispered softly over smooth stones. At the far end stood an ancient stone archway. Carved upon its highest stone were 2 crescent moons resting together. Mira reached out and traced the carving with her fingertips. The stone felt pleasantly warm, almost as though someone had touched it only moments before. She crossed the bridge. The hidden village lay waiting beyond. Warm light glowed from every cottage window. Children laughed as they chased tiny fireflies through flower gardens. The comforting aroma of fresh bread drifted through the evening air. Somewhere nearby, a wooden flute played a slow, peaceful melody. An elderly woman noticed Mira standing quietly near the entrance. Her silver hair was braided with pale blue flowers. She smiled kindly. "Welcome." Mira bowed politely. "I hope I am not disturbing anyone." The woman laughed softly. "You arrived exactly when you were meant to." The words felt strangely familiar, as though they had been spoken many years before. She introduced herself. "My name is Leora. My grandmother once welcomed another traveler beneath this very moon." Mira smiled. "Then perhaps I am fortunate." "You are." Leora looked toward the eastern sky. "The dream moon has returned." The villagers slowly gathered beneath the stars. Children carried little lanterns. Families spread blankets across the grass. Neighbors greeted one another with warm embraces. No one hurried. No one seemed surprised. The valley simply welcomed another century. As Mira looked around, something caught her eye. Near the little stream stood a smooth wooden bench. Upon it rested a carefully carved cedar bookmark shaped like a single leaf. Beside it lay an old leather journal. Its pages had yellowed with age. Curious, she opened it carefully. Inside, written in graceful handwriting, were these words: "Some villages are built from stone and timber. Others are built from the kindness of those who live there. Should you ever awaken with unexpected peace in your heart, know that somewhere beyond the mountains, a village is dreaming with you." No name appeared beneath the final sentence. Only the small drawing of 2 crescent moons. Mira closed the journal gently. She looked toward the quiet stream. For just a heartbeat, she thought she saw the reflection of a traveler smiling beneath the moonlight. A man carrying an ashwood walking stick. Then the water rippled. The reflection disappeared. She smiled. Some stories, she realized, never truly ended. They simply welcomed another listener. The silver-blue light of the dream moon spread across the valley. One by one, the villagers closed their eyes. Children rested peacefully beside their parents. Lanterns glowed warmly beneath the cedar branches. The mountains stood silent beneath the stars. Mira lay upon a soft blanket beside the stream. She looked once more toward the heavens. 2 moons shimmered gently above the valley. One bright, one soft as a whispered promise. Her eyelids slowly grew heavy. The sound of the stream faded into a quiet melody. The scent of lavender drifted through the cool night air. Far away, somewhere beyond waking, she thought she heard the gentle footsteps of a great white stag walking through a forest of glowing trees. She smiled without opening her eyes. And together, the village, the mountains, the cedar forests, the quiet rivers, the lantern foxes, the heart tree, the dream keeper, the dream weaver, and every peaceful soul gathered beneath the dream moon began to dream once more, not as strangers, but as one, for that is the gift of the hidden village. Not that it can be found, but that every so often, when the world grows quiet enough, it remembers us. And if, someday, you awaken before sunrise feeling lighter than the night before, if you find yourself smiling without knowing quite why, if the scent of cedar seems strangely familiar, or if moonlight resting upon your window feels just a little softer than usual, perhaps, without remembering, you too have wandered across the old wooden bridge, walked beneath the archway of two moons, and spent a peaceful night. In the village that dreams together,